She was a dyer's daughter from Siena. She was probably illiterate. She had dozens of brothers and sisters. She lived most of her life in her family's home, on a steep cobbled street in a Tuscan hill town. She belonged to no religious order in the modern sense. She held no office. She had no university degree. She also wrote, by dictation, 382 surviving letters, many of them to bishops, cardinals, queens, condottieri, princes, and the Pope. In one of those letters, she told the Pope to leave France and come back to Rome. She told him this in plain Tuscan Italian. She called him Babbo mio, my daddy, and she told him to stop being afraid. He listened. He came back. This is the story of St. Catherine of Siena, the woman who ended the Avignon papacy, the lay Dominican mystic whose dialogue is read in seminaries today, the doctor of the Catholic Church, the co-patroness of Europe, the saint who died at 33. Catherine Benincasa was born in March of 1347 in the city of Siena in central Italy. She was a twin. The other twin did not survive. Her father, Jacopo, was a wool dyer. Her mother, Lapa, was practical and exhausted, having borne 23 or 24 children before her. The Black Death, the Great Plague that killed perhaps a third of Europe, arrived in Siena in 1348. Catherine was an infant. Her city lost half its population in a single year. She grew up walking past empty houses and shuttered shops. According to her biographer, Raymond of Capua, who became her spiritual director and later Master General of the Dominicans, Catherine had her first vision when she was 6 years old. Walking home with her brother, she looked up over the church of San Domenico and saw Christ enthroned in glory, looking back at her, smiling, blessing her. She was not the same after that. By 12, she had decided not to marry. Her parents resisted. They wanted her to make a good match. She cut off her hair. She refused suitors. She locked herself in a small room. She fasted. She prayed. She prayed. Her father eventually relented. He told the family, "Leave her alone. The Lord wants her." She joined the mantellate, the cloak wearers. They were lay Dominican women who took vows but lived in their own homes, not in a cloister. They wore the white and black Dominican habit. They served the sick. They prayed the office. They did not retreat from the world. They walked through it. Catherine entered the mantellate around age 18. For 3 years she stayed almost entirely in her room at home, in silence, in prayer, in fasting. Around 21 she received what Dominican tradition calls her mystical espousal. Christ, she said, gave her a ring known only to her. She came out of her room and began her public life. The public life was not what anyone expected. She nursed plague victims in Siena, including in the most contagious hospitals the city had. She gathered around her a group of disciples, men and women, called the Familia, the family, who walked with her on her travels. She corresponded with kings, queens, mercenary captains, popes, and dozens of bishops. Because she could not write fluently herself, she dictated. Her secretaries, including young men of noble Tuscan families, took down her words in fast-spoken Tuscan as she paced the room or knelt in prayer. About 382 of those letters survive. In 1376, when Catherine was 29 years old, the great political fact of the Catholic Church was that the Pope was not in Rome. The papacy had been in Avignon, in southern France, for nearly 70 years. 6 popes in a row had lived there. The Italians called it the Babylonian captivity of the Church. The cardinals at Avignon were French. The whole apparatus of the Universal Church was sitting in a French city, under the political shadow of the French king, while the city of Rome itself, the city of St. Peter, fell into ruin and rioting. Pope Gregory XI, the 7th Avignon Pope, knew it was wrong. He had been thinking for years about returning to Rome. But Avignon was comfortable. Rome was dangerous. The cardinals around him did not want to leave. The French court did not want him to leave. Catherine wrote him letter after letter. She did not flatter him. She did not dress up her language in scholarly Latin. She wrote in plain Tuscan, the way a daughter writes to a father. She called him Babbo mio, my daddy. She told him to be a man. She told him that fear is unworthy of a vicar of Christ. She told him to stop listening to the cardinals around him who feared political consequences, and to start listening to the will of God. She told him that if he did not return to Rome, others would have to do for him what he should have done for himself. In the summer of 1376, she travelled in person to Avignon. She was 29 years old. She was a small Italian woman in a Dominican habit, accompanied by a few disciples, with no official commission, no political backing, no resources. She walked into the papal palace. She met Pope Gregory XI. They spoke in private and in council. The papal court found her overwhelming. Some thought she was a fraud. Some called her a witch. Others tried to test her with theological questions. She answered. In January of 1377, less than a year after Catherine's letters and visit, Pope Gregory XI left Avignon and returned to Rome. The papacy was home. He died a year later. The Western Schism began almost immediately. 2 popes, 2 obediences, cardinals on both sides. It was the worst crisis in the history of the medieval papacy. Catherine did not stop writing. She supported Pope Urban VI, the legitimately elected pope who remained in Rome. She wrote to him too. She did not stop telling popes the truth. She also wrote in those years the work that secured her place among the great theologians of the Catholic Church. It is called the Dialogue of Divine Providence. She dictated it in 25 days, often in ecstasy. Her secretaries took down what she said. The text is structured as a conversation between a soul and God the Father. It is one of the great mystical texts of the Catholic tradition. Pope Paul VI, when he named her a Doctor of the Church, cited the dialogue as one of the great theological achievements of the Christian centuries. She received the stigmata in Pisa in 1375, the wounds of Christ in her hands, feet, and side. According to the Dominican tradition, the marks were visible only to her in life and visible to others at her death. She fasted to a degree that has troubled both her medieval and modern readers. By the end of her life, she was eating almost nothing, and she may have died in part from the effects of that fasting. Her contemporaries took it as part of her witness. Modern readers should be careful. The Catholic theology of holy fasting is not the same as a modern eating disorder, but it is also not a modern wellness practice. Her case is its own thing, and the Church has never required imitation of its specifics. She died in Rome on the 29th of April, 1380. She was 33 years old, the same age traditionally as Christ at the crucifixion. Her body was buried in Rome at the Dominican Church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, where you can visit her tomb today. Her head was returned to Siena. It is still venerated there in the Church of San Domenico. Her writings survived. The dialogue circulated quickly. Her letters were collected. Her cause for canonization opened. In 1461, Pope Pius II, himself a Sienese, canonized her. In 1970, Pope St. Paul VI declared Catherine of Siena a Doctor of the Catholic Church, the first woman, alongside St. Teresa of Ávila, named to that title. In 1999, Pope St. John Paul II named her a co-patroness of Europe, alongside St. Bridget of Sweden and St. Edith Stein, a dyer's daughter from Siena, patron of the continent, Doctor of the Universal Church. So why does Catherine matter, almost 700 years after she lived? She matters because the Catholic faith has always honoured holy honesty. Catherine was obedient to the Church. She supported the Pope she believed to be legitimately elected, even when he was personally difficult. And in that obedience, she also told him the truth. To his face. In writing. Without flinching. That is the Catholic posture. Loyalty to Christ in his Church and prophetic honesty within her. Catherine got both right. She matters because she shows what a layperson, with no power, no office, no education, and no money, can do when they speak with the authority of a saint. She had no army. She had no academic degree. She had no political backing. She had a relationship with Christ. And from that relationship, she moved a pope across the Mediterranean. She matters because her words still teach. The dialogue is still in print. Her letters are still in print. Seminaries still read her. Popes still cite her. She is not a museum saint. She is a living teacher. If you want to honor St. Catherine, do one small thing for her. Find one of her letters online. There are good Catholic translations available. Read just one. Hear her voice, in Tuscan plain-spoken Italian, telling a pope or a queen or a soul exactly what they need to hear. She wrote, in one of her most famous lines, cry out with 100,000 voices. It is silence that kills the world. The dyer's daughter who told the Pope to come home, the doctor of the Church, the co-patroness of Europe, the hidden mother of the saintly truth-tellers of every Catholic century. Subscribe for more hidden mothers of the Church. There are many more women whose names the centuries tried to forget, and we are bringing them back, one Sunday at a time.